This is our contact site we built. We can add contacts, we can delete them, but we cannot edit them. One solution for editing them would be to put here an edit button, so that when we click it, we are led to a form that edits the contact. This is a fairly standard solution. We had already some examples in this course using that solution. What I want to do is something different. I want to be able to directly click on the content, here on the last name for instance, and edit it. To do that, let me first rationalize a little bit the HTML that is generating this page. You see here that to output a row, I have two identical TD tags. These are TD's cell data, one for the first name and one for the last name. And I want to obtain only one of them, because we will need to essentially write the same code for both of them, and I don't want to write things too many times. So I here write a TD v4, so I want to loop essentially over the attribute name, which is the first name and then last name. So here I build an array that contains first name and then last name, okay? And that's it. And inside the TD I now put a single line that says row oh yes, here I forgot field name in, okay, row of field name. Okay, this will enable me to avoid this code repetition of outputting the field twice. So let me make this single change and test it. I don't need to reload, but I don't need to restart Py4Web, but I do need in general to reload hitting Shift Reload, because this will reload all the cached material, including any new JS or HTML that is there, okay? So if I do this, well, it still works, there is no change, but the page was different that generated this, so we are okay. Now what I want to do is the following. Instead of a TD, I need to be able to edit. So I want to use here an editable field. I want to replace essentially the TD with an input tag that will contain the right formatting. So the first thing I want to do is transform these fields from static fields into input fields. And to do that, I go here, and inside this TD I will replace this command, which essentially puts out the content as text, with an input. Okay, actually I write around it a div of class control. I use this to keep Bulma happy. It always likes to have a control div, and inside I say an input of type text of class input, which is again used to keep Bulma happy. Okay, and that's it, except, you know, how do I put a value in an input? This is how I put a value out as text, but to put the value in an input I have to take this and put it here via a vmodel directive. So the vmodel directive is the directive in Vue.js that binds the content of the input to the JavaScript variable. Okay, so I put it here. The braces are not needed. So that's it. So this should work to transform what previously were text fields into dynamic fields. So let me test the code. If I reload, yes. So this is not very beautiful. So it works. I can edit here. No edit is sent to the host. But this is not very nice yet. What I need to do is keep track of the state of each one of these fields. I want to remember whether I'm just watching, editing, or whether I'm done editing and I'm waiting for the value to be saved to the server. This because Bulma is quite nice in enabling me to style input fields in the way I want, and I want to use these three different stylings. I want to use the focus style for when I am in an editing state. I want to use this loading spinner that is generated here. Let me show you, by having class control is loading. Okay, to generate the edit spinner of when I'm saving the value. And then I want to use actually an input that is read-only and static, okay, using both the read-only attribute and the isStatic class to generate something that does not even look like an input, but looks like normal text. So I want essentially these fields to look like normal text, and then when I click on them, I want them to be transformed into input fields as we have now, so that I can edit, and I want that when I'm done editing, these fields restore their normal read-only aspect. So the first thing to realize is that for each one of these fields, I need to store somewhere in JavaScript its state. Only in this way I will be able to control the aspect of the field and also the operations that are needed to do on the field via JavaScript. So here in the code, we had in index.js this code that was adding an enumeration, right? It was adding this index for each row. And now I want to do a similar function. Let me call it decorate. App.decorate is equal to a function that takes an array again and produces a result. And so at the end of it I will write return A. And I want to add, so let me write, let me cut and paste this to be faster. What I want to do here is that to each element I want to add, to each row essentially, I want to write a state element that is a dictionary that we will remember what is the state of each one of the two attributes. Sorry, I say a dictionary, but what I mean is a JavaScript object. This JavaScript object originally will tell me that the first name is clean, which is the state I use to denote that it's read-only, and the last name is also in clean state. So here let me put a comment, okay, and say this decorates the rows ag that come from the server, adding information on their state. And let me write it here once and for all, okay? Clean, read-only, the value is saved on the server, okay? The other state possible is edit, okay? The value is being edited. And the third possible value is pending, a save is pending. Okay, so here I just decorate the rows saying that they are clean, and what I want to do is when I first load them, I denote that they are clean. So here instead of when I load, instead of just doing the enumerate, I also say app.decorate. I will just change the two like this. All right. And the other thing is that when I add a new row, I need to, when I add a new contact, I need to make sure that it's also properly annotated. So I go a moment in the code to add a contact, and after it has been added, here I can say, for example, how to do it? This is what happens after I get a response. I push in this new row, right? I push in a new row that has an ID, a first name and last name, and now I want this new row that I push in also to have a state. So I want to have a state attribute that will contain just this. Okay? So this will push a new row that says that it's clean. This approach, is good, because in this way you could have another edit pending and you could have hit the button to add a new row. In this way, I just make as clean the row that has been added, not really any other row that might have been still in the middle of some modification. In reality, it's fairly unlikely that the user will have more than one operation pending, but I still want to try to write correct code. So this is good. and we now annotate the row. And now what we need to do is we need to use these three states that are clean, edit, and pending to style properly our input field. Okay, so we refer to this to the Bulma documentation, which is here, and I need to do it both to the control element and to the input. So let's start actually from the control element. The control element, I need to say that it is pending. You see, it's the control element that has is loading if the field is pending. So let me do that a moment. First, that is in index.html. There is this div of class control, and I need to add another class in a conditional fashion. Okay, and so the way I do it is that I say the class with a colon ahead of it. Okay, this is Bulma's is Vu's way of saying that this class attribute is controlled by this Bulma expression. Okay, and what you give here is a it looks like a dictionary, but it's more like a conditional statement, and you say please attach to the class is loading. So this is a class, and this is a JavaScript condition under which you want to add that particular class. And the condition is if the state of the row for your field name happens to be equal to pending. Okay? So this takes care of the correct class for the control element. Now we need to take care of the class for this input. So let me make this field a little bit bigger so that inside it I can write these class comments. Okay. So same principle. This will be a sort of multiple choice, if you want to think at it that way. And I want to write. So let's see which classes are there. One class is focused. Input is focused is for this blue line. And this I want to use when it's being edited. So what I write is this. I say is focused. Okay, use these in case, so you know, this is a class, this is a class, and this is a JavaScript condition, which in this case is r underscore state of field name is equal to edit. Okay, and then I also want to do another thing, and that is I want to use again I refer to Bulma. I want to use is static as a class. No, sorry. Yes, I want to use the is static as a class. Where is the example? Here. Class input is static in order to denote that it's not being edited. Okay, so I want to say please put this class is static in case r.state for the field name is equal to clean. Okay, this is what I need to do. I'm almost done, except that I need to do one more thing, that is, in addition to these classes, I also need to say nothing worse than fighting indentation. I also need to say that I need to add the read-only element in this case in which r state of field name always is equal to clean. Why do I need to do it this way? I think this may be a bit confusing. Why do I need to do it this way? Because read-only is not a class. Read-only is a funny element. It's one of the things that I actually hate about HTML, but you know, I didn't invent it, so I'm innocent. So in addition to classes, there are this funny stuff that is called elements. That is called, I mean, actually I don't know how it is called, but are these things that appear somewhere and are between your feet. But look at it a moment. When you it's an HTML attribute. So, right? So it's not part of a class. It's just one of these things that appears there. You see there is a read-only there. Okay, it's an attribute. It's not a class. So this is the way to conditionally create an attribute. This is for adding classes, and this is to conditionally add an attribute. So this should take care of most of the styling. So let's now see whether this actually works. So we refresh the page. Miracle! It works! We see no difference. Well, actually we do, right? This looks like read-only. And so how do we know that it works, by the way? So I can do inspect element, inspect, and oops, there. And I can see that this actually is an input of class input is static, so it's just not a piece of text, this Luca. It's incredible, right? How much complexity there is sometimes between a small element on a web page. So there is input of class input is static, yada yada. And the other thing you should always check when you reload the page is the console, and we see no errors. Otherwise you would see some reddish indication that an error occurred and you would need to take care of it. So far so good. We haven't blown up anything yet. It's true we haven't blown up anything yet, but it's also true, unfortunately, that this does exactly nothing. I can click as much as I want. No success. So what we need to do now is add the behavior to these. So I need to make sure, first of all, that when I click on a field, it becomes editable. It changes from clean to edit the state. So this is easy enough. It's a very typical operation to add this type of behavior, and we do as follows. So when I click on a field, there is a click event that is generated in JavaScript. You can look at the documentation for JavaScript events. Any event that happens in the browser, anything to your mind that happens, corresponds to an event. There is an event for clicking, one for moving the mouse out of the region, one for scrolling, one for drinking water. No, well, not quite, but almost, right? So here, to catch an event, you say @sign and then the event name, and you can find this list of events. If you search for them, you can just search, browser events and Mozilla Developer Network, for instance, or something like that. So say if you press click, what I want to do is I want to call a function that says start edit to signal that I want to start editing that field, and I have to tell which field, right? So I have to say the row index and also the field name. Okay, and so once I have this start edit here, I need to make this method known to Vue, because otherwise it's extremely useful to look at what happens if I don't make it known to Vue. So let me just save these and reload the page and show you the effect, actually, because it's a super typical error you will make. So if I just reload the page now, oh, strange, the console doesn't actually tell me anything. But if I click on Luca, it will tell me something, and it will tell me Vue warn, a property of our method start edit is not defined on the instance but is referenced during render. So now it complains. It hadn't quite realized. Okay, only if I click it realizes. So let me now add this method start edit. So I go into index.js and I look at the methods. Where are they? Here. And I add start edit app.startEdit. And then I need to write this start edit method. And so what does it do? App.startEdit is equal to a function that takes the row index and the field name. And what does it do with them? Well, it says that app Vue rows, these are the rows with row index. Okay, this is our row, and this row will have a state, and the state for our field name will now be equal to edit. That's all we need to do. We need to change the state to edit for that particular row. So let's see whether this works. So if I now reload the page, and if I click on Luca, yes, this works. Now I get to the styling for editing. So this is good, but only partially good, because yes, now we can start editing a field. In fact, we can even start editing two at once, but we can never stop editing them, which is really not very great. So when do we want to stop editing a field and transmit the change to the server? So first of all, you have a choice. You could be transmitting the change to the server every time you hit a key on the keyboard. That is also an event, and you could listen to that event and send every update to the server. You could also have some timeouts and decide that even if you're editing for a long time, every 10 seconds or 1 minute you are sending updates to the server. You can do all that, and in fact for bigger text entries it might be a good idea, so that the user doesn't lose all the work if the connection goes down. But in this case, what I want to do is that I want to save a field when I click out of it. So when the mouse is no longer clicked there, so to say. Right? That's a natural behavior. You click there to start the edit, you click elsewhere to stop it, and you expect then the value to be saved. So the first worry is, what is the event that corresponds to stop editing there? Well, it's called blur event. Again, you can look it up. And so what I want to say here is in index.html, so this is a behavior for clicking, and I wanted to add, and I love how I fight the indentation, but I want to add a blur event that says, so in response to the blur event I do stop edit of row index function. Okay, so so this is great, and we already know what we need to do now. We need to go here and add the stop edit. This is mapped to app.stopEdit. Okay, and now we need to do this. App.stopEdit is equal to function of row index function. Okay, and then so clicking elsewhere is a very generic thing. So I want to actually say if, well, let me say first of all, row is equal to app_vo rows of row index. So I don't have to repeat this expression all the time, and I need a let. So now I want to say something like this. If row state of the function was equal to edit, okay, so if there was actually an edit pending, because otherwise I don't need to do anything. Okay, if I was not editing, there is nothing that needs saving. Okay, so what do I want to do in this case? In this case, what I want to do is that I want to save it. So the first thing I do is that I say row.state of this field is equal to pending. This will give the proper styling to the field via the declarations we had, right, for the class pending. If you look at it, it's here, right? If the class is pending, we display the spinner. So, and now we need to tell the server about the new value for the field. So we need to do a server call, of course. So axios.post to edit contact URL. Okay, and so do we have that URL already defined? No, we don't, right? So I need to remember to define. Actually, let me define it now. Let edit contact URL is equal to, just like above. Okay, is much easier to do it now than forgetting. XML edit contact URL. Because I want to write an edit controller. And so in the controllers, I will write here, let me just copy one of these and replace it. And so here I say edit contact URL with go to edit contact. And this function edit contact, I will not write it entirely today, okay? But I mean, I will today, but I will not do it now. I first want to write the JavaScript, but I will, let me sketch it. This is edit contact. It uses that. The method will be post. Okay. Post. Edit contact. So I want this to do the edit, which I want to write later. So I say to do, and then I want to return again okay, because just to signal that everything went fine. So this is just a placeholder. Let me fill it in later, but at least now we can generate this proper URL. We can pass it to index.html. We can define it in JavaScript, and we can finally use it here. And so what do I pass to it? So I pass to it a dictionary that contains what I want to update, which is I want to say that the ID of the field I'm updating, which is row.id. I want to say the field name, I say field fn, and then I want to give the new value, which is simply, or maybe not so simply, but row of fn. You see, normally you can access things via, let me add it as a comment, you can say row.firstname. But if this first name is contained in a variable, if fn in this case, you can use the square bracket notation to access the portion, right? So we can do it this way. Let me put a comma just for beauty. And so this is the server call, and it will carry out the modification, and then function result. So when the server call returns, we want to be able to do something. What do we have to do once the server call returns? Let's see. Well, what we have to do is that we have to mark that the state of the row is no longer pending, but is now equal to clean, right? Because the result has been saved. So I cut and paste these. I align it in whatever way it wants, but then I say here clean. Good. So now I have these three things that I'm sending to the server, and I need to intercept them and do the save. So let me do that. So I have to write it here. So instead of this, I will write updates the DB record. Okay, and I need to write the following code. So first I need to fish out the three parameters that I'm sending. It's easier actually if we could have a big enough screen that we can work with two separate columns. I very often keep my index.js on one side and the controller on the other side, because I need to remember ID, field, and values. These are the three things I'm passing. So I need to say that ID is equal to request.json.get of ID. Okay. Field is equal to request.json.get of field. Okay. And then value is equal to request.json.get of value. So the only touchy thing here is that this is a request.json, because you have to remember that the Axios library very wisely uses JSON to pass values around. So this is not, if you did a request params, you would be very surprised to find that these fields are empty, because they're not passed as parameters of the request. They're passed into a JSON body of the request itself. So once we fish out these three values, we need to do the database update. DB contact ID is equal to ID. So this is a query, right? and then I put the update, and there is a line that is a bit complicated. So let me write it and then explain it. I write the following: star star field colon value. So let me tell you by example what this does. Imagine that field is like first name, the string first name, okay? And imagine that value is Jack, okay? So what gets produced? So this field colon value is gonna generate a dictionary that is essentially first name, okay, and the value is Jack, okay? If I put 2 stars in front of these, this is gonna generate, it's gonna treat this as a dictionary of variable is equal to value. So it's gonna generate essentially first name is equal to Jack in the call to update, which is what I need. Okay, so I use this very complicated syntax, but what I want to do is essentially this. I want to say take the name of the field and the value and make them become this type of declaration in which the field is used as a variable name and the value is used as the value that I pass to the update function. Okay, so I'm sorry it looks so complicated. And then I return an OK. Actually, and then I have a sort of crazy idea, but it will be very convenient in debugging. I do it all the time. So here I import also the time package, and here at the end, instead of just returning, I say time sleep 1, okay? And then I typically write debugging, so that I remember hopefully to take it out before the end. Why do I sleep for a second? Because when I transmit an update to the server, I will display this pending icon on the screen. If the server is incredibly fast and the local server is incredibly fast, this will happen so quickly that my eyes will miss it. You know, it will take, a few milliseconds. My eyes are not fast enough, and neither is the animation, by the way. So if I add a delay of 1 second, it will make visible this stage in which the field is pending, okay? So I can save these and I can reload. This time I changed the server, so I really need a reload. And then I can, did it already reload? When you reload, you always have to keep an eye on the fact that all the various applications are reloaded correctly, right? Because if one of them is not, then that's a problem right there. So this reloaded correctly, and now I can go to test it. So let's test it. I can reload, and I get an internal server error. Why? Well, we look at it, and we see that there is an error in the template, right? So there is an error in a response write, and so I go in the template, I look at it, and I figure out that I forgot a parenthesis. Okay, not too bad. So now I reload it again. Okay, fine, this works so far. So I can edit on Jane, and okay, so far so good. I should keep an eye on the console, because if there is a JavaScript error, I will see it here, and I shall keep an eye on the network, and I can erase the previous transactions, because if there is a problem, I want to see it there. Okay, so I want to click on Jane and change this Jane Smith into an Helen Smith, for instance. And so now the important thing is that when I click out of here, the save should occur, and I should see a spinner for 1 second, and then again the value becomes static. Let's see whether that's true. Yes, magic. And here you can see the post. So let's look at the post. You should look at all the elements, right, to make sure that the thing is actually working. So let's look at the post a moment. The post contains a request. This is a JSON. We can look at it raw or parsed. So it requested the server to please update the first name of the ID 2 to the value Helen. The response was just okay. And the other test is, did the update actually happen? So I can look in the database, or I can simply reload the page and check that this stays to Helen. Now I can change this into, I don't know, instead of Smith, I can say, I don't know, like, I don't know, Abrahamson, whatever. This gets saved. I mean, there is not much testing that all the rows work, right? But this still works. Now, a more interesting test is this, and it's a non-obvious test. Suppose I now add a person. Will this still work? Will essentially a row that I have added via Vue behave correctly when I try to then edit its values? This is a non-trivial test, and we shall do it. So let us try and add Charlie Brown. The stress. So let's look at it. I add it. Now, imagine that I want to lower my stress and know that so far so good. How can I do it? Well, one way to check that so far so good is the following. Here I have the Vue developer tools. I can bring them up, click on the root, and go nosing around. There are 3 objects in this array of rows. The third is for Charlie Brown. Oh good, it has its own ID. Does it have a state? Yes, it has a state object that says that it's clean. The major problem typically, or a common source of bugs, happens when the rows that you insert manually do not match the format of the rows you get from the server. That is a fairly common error, okay? And in fact, we did a nice solution in which the row is added locally already. A more brute force approach, which I do not particularly advise you to use, would have been to just ask again the server for the set of all the rows. That's sort of a more brute force and ugly, I have to say, but it's a safer approach. We instead went for the high road of adding a row that has exactly the right format. So now, let's see what happens. This Vue debugger, I downloaded it and added it to Firefox. The extension is available for Firefox and I believe also for Chrome, not for Safari. And is very useful in testing Vue. It's not perfect, however. I have noticed that in some occasions there is a change in Vue in the JavaScript, but there is no change in what it gives you here. Okay, so let me keep this out there somewhere. So that I can look at it while I touch the fields. Okay, what I want to see is the state of this Charlie Brown. And now, if I edit, say, the name, I click on the name, you see that from clean it went to edit. I say Charles Brown, and you see that if I modify these in real time, these first name fields changes value, right? So this is very helpful in debugging. So now there is this first name in state edit. Now I click somewhere else to save it, and I see that it's gonna be pending for a while and it is gonna be clean. So everything seems to actually work.